Hello everyone. Welcome to another stream. All right, mic check. Everything seems to be fine as well. Good. Awesome. So we're gonna start. I'm going to I'm going to be working on a lot of Angular in this stream. So if you are an Angular developer, I think you're gonna learn quite a lot. And if not, then you're going to learn Angular still. So I'm working on this new book. So I'm gonna be coding a lot of stuff. We're going to have chat as well. And we're also going to look into some sounds that we can add to our soundboard application that we created during a live stream, which we built with Electron, etc. So I also published a video showing um, showing particularly that on how the restream bot works. So I'm hoping this is going to be fun. We'll see. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, we're going to look into the code repository for my modern Angular signals book. And this is right now not public yet, so we'll do that later when we have the time. But we'll also, which one is this one? Oh, that's not, that's for actually something else. We have the Restream Buddy application that we talked about before. And where's my camera? There's my camera. There we go. So the Restream Buddy application, for those of you who don't know, we created it during a live stream, and we finally, or I finally fixed it so we can have it in Windows. And I'll also add support for Mac and Linux, or I just have to add the configuration for running those. What I'm gonna do is enable chat as well, so you can see yourself as well. So here, let's quickly look into the folder where we have the sounds, and that should be in out, make, not make, but here. So if I open it, there we go. And this is the app. And this is the packaged application. For those of you who don't know, we built this with React. We built this with React, Electron, TypeScript, and and a bunch of love, so to say. So this app has, or this app should have some commands already in it. However, there's an issue right now that I figured out, and that was you can't really save the sounds in the file system at the moment. Thank you so much. Oops, wrong for the follow. So here we have, for example, we talked about that we could add just a command here, and then we could go and say, this is the sound file. So let's pick something like this. And then we could add a description like, a tr sound. And we add that. Now I could either play it from here, which you heard, or I could type that in the chat. So if I say this, you can hear the sound as well. So you as an audience have the possibility to send this sound, and then that would play on my machine, and that would be heard in the stream. And another way that we could also do it is to trigger hotkeys. So if I show you my voice mod, which is also a software where you can have a sort of soundboard. So this has a bunch of sounds that we could see, for example, or or so things like that. So these are configured by the sound or by hotkeys like Control Alt 2, Control Alt 3, Control Alt 4, etc. Ali says Assalamu alaikum. Walaikum assalam, Ali. So what I can actually do is to register these sounds, and when you send them in the chat, those would be played on my machine. So for example, I could say sad, and if we have a look at here, this is Control Alt 2. So I can say Control and Alt, so selecting both of them, and we also have Shift and Meta. Let's say we select 2, and what's it, 2? Yes. And here we can say sad tones, tone sound, something like this, right? And now, since we have just configured this, and if we add the sound here, I can play this. Yay. And now if you try that in the chat as well, which is the command sad, you should be able to see, or you should be able to hear that as well. I'm going to also add the bottom banners because these were the sounds that we had. So if I go and say sounds, you can see we have sad. There you can see those sad, clap, scream, don't redeem. So all of those are there. So let's quickly register them. And if you have suggestions for more sounds, we can also add those as well. So we had sad. Yes, thank you. So we have Control Alt 3 for fifth. So Control Alt, and that was 3. And then we add sound. Clap is not there yet. We are just adding them now. I think as long as I have my app open, they remain there. When I close the application, they're gone. So we need to fix that at some point. So clapping is Control Alt 5. So clap, and then we have Control Alt, we have 5, and then here we can say clap sound, and then add it. Now if you try it, Ali, this should work. And in the meantime, we have scream, Control Alt 4, Control Alt 4, and this was scream sound. So we got scream. We also had one more, right? That was don't redeem. So now clap should work. Don't redeem. There we go. That's one, and then we have don't redeem sound. And the fun part is that the hotkeys that are configured in your machine, they can do whatever. Right now, the hotkeys are triggering these sounds, but you could set your macros on your Windows or your Mac OS or whatever. So you can configure whatever you want to do. And then it would, this would just trigger those keys. So basically it's like pressing the keys for you. So now we have almost all of them. So we have don't redeem, we have sad, piffed, clap, scream, and don't redeem, so to say. So you can try basically all of the sounds. There we go. Having said that, I'm going to just minimize this so we can actually get to work on what I was trying to work on. So where is my window? Here it is. So let's quickly clone this guy. So we're going to go here. I'm going to go out to personal, and then we're going to do this. Is it already? Okay, okay. So then I can just say cursor, and I can open modern Angular signals book. I don't know why it didn't show me that before. Let's close this guy. And let's say, sometimes it doesn't. See if I'm not going too overboard with this. So here, yeah, that looks fine. Cool. So what we can do is we can start with with me just showing you what do we have at the moment. So let's run. First of all, let's pull the code from our repository. There we go. Now let's run npm install. And what we are looking at the moment is we're going to, I'm going to check one thing really quick. I see that Siddharth has typed a key. I don't see the response of it. Why is that? I'm going to see if this shows up in the chat or not, or if restream is buggy. It seems like it's buggy, right? You don't get a response back. I do see that the commands should be enabled by default, at least in the chat. And now you're getting an inception from me. Sorry about that. But I do see that the chat should be configured automatically. We have Discord. We have ng-cookbook there as well. If I bring it here and zoom in a bit, So if I have a look at this guy right here, so you see we have the commands here. So ng-cookbook should actually be working fine. Improve your communication by creating reply commands. Yes, but I can only improve it if it works. Restream. What's happening here? Hmm. I don't know. Should I refresh and see? Because then I'll lose all your messages. But let's see if I refresh in this case. Okay. Now if I enable these and disable, I'm going to try to what you call turn it on and off. So if I do ng cookbook, okay, so it looks like only I can send those commands. Maybe there's a setting that forbids that. Hmm. Ah, this is no, not this is. I thought this was actually going to do that nicely, but it doesn't. Well, that means we have the possibility of actually using our Restream buddy to do that. So we should be able to, and we're going to rename this to something else, but we should be able to create our commands from here as well that we can send back. So, oh well, then I'm going to run the commands for you when it doesn't work, and I'll see whenever I see the that someone has used a command, I can respond. Zoom out, click here, and you said git cheat sheet. What happened to my English? Yeah, so here you can find that as well. Alrighty. So now that we have the code in here, let's run which chapter were we running? It was chapter 6. So NX, do we have NX here? We do. So NX serve chapter 6. By the way, how many of you have worked with NX before? Is there anyone in the chat who has worked with NX monorepositories? We don't have chapter 6. We do have chapter 6, but it's has a dash here. Righty, let's see. Maybe what we can also do is to have these side by side. So I can bring this guy here and bring this guy a bit here. And like this maybe. So we can go to localhost 4200. Okay. Good. So we're creating some examples in this actually. And what we would do is, oh, we also have to fix this guy as well on the click thing. I thought we fixed it, but I think we probably didn't fix it properly. So let's say I'm going to open, there was a project for resource, ng resource injection context. I think this is the one. We did fix the drawer. Right now the drawer doesn't open when I click or click it again. So let's pick my code from components, drawer, and I think I'm pretty sure I fixed it somewhere here. So it's LG drawer open. No, this doesn't seem like it. Do I have code that's not here? Yes, I need to pull the code. Let's pull the code. And this is what I was hoping for. So this is my drawer components HTML. Let's quickly go to apps, not apps, libs. We have source, lib, component, store, and this is the HTML. So we replace this guy. Then, and I think we are also going to change the theme as well. Maybe I tried doing something with the theme already. No, I did not. Okay, so then I'm going to keep this guy like this. and we save this and we change this back to lib drawer. Divyan Chauhan, Ahsan, I follow your Angular tutorials to implement on a project. You are really doing an incredible job. Keep going. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. So now we should have this working. Can we try? That doesn't seem like it's working. What did we miss? So we have the drawer template here. We use in open or class drawer open is open. And then we have our component here, which does this. So we have is open, which is coming as an input. Aha, because we also have to have, now I remember. Because we also had to look into the header component, which actually does a click. I'm going to bring this here and let's update the header components template, which is this. And then we should also have, you can already see that the app is breaking. And then we have the header components TypeScript. So we do this and we fix our component like this. What now? Oh, this should be lib header because we are in a library. How do we feel about this now? Does it open? No, because the app has to facilitate the is open as well. I'm thinking now. Is there a better way for me to do this at all? I'm not supposed to have multiple drawers. I'm not supposed to have multiple header components. And I also don't want to add the same code everywhere. Or, I mean, it's a bit tricky, but I could do it, to be honest. But then I would be creating an app everywhere. So if I'm working with the header and a drawer, what is the best way for me to go about this? Do you understand the problem we are at right now? Omar Udiko says, mate, I'm 29 year unmarried. Is it too late to start coding, and how much of influence? Sorry, I'm just gonna expand the chat. How much of an influence will AI play? Um, I don't think it's too late, to be honest. There are people who have started recently and they're doing pretty well, but you would have to understand that it would take you at least a year to be someone who's really confident at what they're doing, like the 10,000 rule that we usually have. So I don't think it's too late. You can still start. And when it comes to job opportunities, there is still a lot of projects which would require these basic skills like HTML, JavaScript, CSS. Even though you can create projects with AI, and most of the times they would look nice, as soon as you want to customize them, you want to sort of improve anything in them, you need someone who actually knows coding. So I think that's where the experts come in. So I would still say you need to know the ground or the basics, for example, of web development or coding, whatever, whichever sort of dimension you're going with coding. And then AI will help you in that regard. So what I usually recommend nowadays is, instead of fearing AI, you need to learn to use it to your advantage, and you need to learn it, or learn the tools that are out there. So you don't need to be a Python programmer or someone who can quickly code AI models or understand like all these algorithms of what goes inside the model. But I think the idea is that you start using these AI tools which are available and then try to build something from it. So you mentioned you got a bit of JavaScript experience. Yeah, I don't think that's going to be a problem. So you can definitely go with that. And if you continue working on projects and building projects, I think that's going to really help you out. The key is to have a strong portfolio or to keep building stuff, to be honest. That's the key. Right. So in the app component, we are looking at the drawer, and then we are also looking in aha. So I also changed this as well. And then what I do is I get the is open, and then I say is drawer open. And then I also, now in this particular case, all of my applications are actually drawing or changing. So maybe what I can do is I can create a service that is for the drawer, and then that can be invoked by any place. So I think that's going to make things much easier. So let's do it like this. So what I do is, because I'm not going to reuse these components, so what I can do is I can go into libs. We have a UI lib. I'm going to actually hide this guy. So we have libs, UI lib, we have components. No, we have libs, UI lib, source, lib, UI lib. And then we create a folder for services. So dir services. And then what we do is we create a service inside. So cd services, and then we say nxg service drawer. So let's quickly create that. Oh, Scalle says volunteer at connecting community hubs, look for government certified codes and designations. That's a really good advice. I think networking is the key. So you definitely need to network as much as possible with like-minded developers, or just go out and hang out in the events. And I think that's, I mean, when it comes to jobs, networking is really important. So you either have a really good network or people who can recommend you or refer you, or you have so strong of a portfolio that recruiters can reach out. So I think those both of them can work. Tuskal says ignore people telling you to make a portfolio with projects is BS. I don't think so, mate. I've been in the software industry for about 11 years, and I've had many years where I did not have to send even my CV. So it really depends on where you are at the moment. And if you don't have a good network, and if nobody knows how capable you are, you're not going to get a job. So I don't really, yeah, I don't really see a way people can get a job if they don't have a good network or if they don't have a portfolio. So you can't have this portfolio for a start is a bad advice. I mean, it really depends. You can't really just have a portfolio and not share it. So even if you score something, so what advice when we give, or I don't know about others, but when I give the advice to create a portfolio that has an indirect influence of, first, the person creating something on their own that brings experience, and second, to show what they are doing. So if you don't have those things and you have just started out and you're going into the software industry, I don't really think that you can just go into a company, and in the past that would have been a really good use case or possible, so to say. Now it's not. So when I started, people or companies were more willing to hire junior developers to train them, and then to take them in the sort of with a buddy, so to say, and then training them, spending time on them to grow them. Now, with the economy shifting, a lot of companies don't do that. A lot of companies basically want someone who can come in and who can start shipping stuff. No company is out there just, distributing job opportunities because they want to do. We're not talking about portfolio having assignments, just to be clear. So if you watched my other videos, I've already told about not talking about to do applications, not creating their portfolio website. When we talk about having a strong portfolio, that means that you have built something that is usable. Either you're using it yourself or someone else is using that. So a portfolio is not really something that just follows assignment. So I don't think that that's the way to go. And just by applying to 200 jobs without a portfolio, I think that's absolutely stupid. That's not going to work. It's quite possible that, yes, if you're patient enough and you keep applying, someone may reach you out. But just imagine the situation where we are right now. We have senior developers who've been laid off. We also have juniors who are applying. And the possibility of someone who has just started without a portfolio, without a network, getting a job, I don't think that's as easy as you suggest. So I think should get educated. Yeah, and there could be multiple possibilities as well. If there are opportunities out there for your local area, then yeah, definitely. But to be honest, to avoid disappointment, I don't advise going out there without a portfolio. So you should have at least something in your project being a developer, even if you are a junior developer. And that's what the world has come to, unfortunately. But that is what it is. All right. So what we should be doing here, I think we can create a signal that says is drawer open, and we can start with a signal that's false. And what we can do is, I mean, we can directly use this signal and update that, to be honest, or we could just create a new signal that says toggle drawer, and that could get the is open value. That could be a boolean, and we can say this dot is open dot set, and then we just set it to is open. So we can either use that, or we can actually use the update method, to be honest. And here we can say get the old value and just return the negative of it, or you could shorten it down if you wanted, like this, and removing this. And then what we can do is we can bind this between these components. So we can say is open is actually going to be, we inject our drawer service and we say is drawer open. So it is a signal, a writable signal, so to say. And then we can also go and in the header, we can actually do the same thing here. So we can, instead of drawer click here, maybe we can create it as a function. And here we can say is, or we can say toggle. Let's call it drawer service. Inject drawer service. And then we go here and we say return this or this dot, or we can actually say, do we even need this function? I don't think so. So we can, from the HTML, say, can everyone see this? Oh no, you can't really see this. Let me bring this guy here. So in here, when we are clicking it, we can say drawer service dot toggle door, and that's pretty much it. So let's see. So here, there we go. Good. Is it right that maths is the root of programming? At some point, you're using maths, of course, but it depends on uh, your job description and what you're trying to do. If you're trying to just, change colors of the buttons, not too much. You will be using basic maths, but you're not really using differentials, integrations, and all the weird equations. In those areas, it could be possible that at some point you are using a lot of more complex side of the maths, but not in all jobs, so to say. But when you're talking about programming, math is the root of it. It depends on which side of maths or how complex side of maths you're talking about. But definitely, yes, it is the root of programming. Alrighty. One of the things that we can also do, I think, in the drawer component that we don't really add that as, I think there was also in Daisy UI, there should be a way of looking at the drawer that's not pushing things, that could come over things. Oh, but I think there was also a problem of how the drawer, I think I remember. You see, there's a glitch. When it closes, it goes above chapter 6 here. You see? It sort of jumps things, and that is because the layout of the apps that we have, so that's not accurate. So I'm gonna quickly fix that. Oops. What's happening? Can I click it? Can I click it? Ah, thank you. So I can close this. All right. And then we can look into our view explorer, control shift E. Okay. So then we can actually go to the apps and we can change the app component HTML there. And what we can do actually is we can put the header inside. And let's try that with chapter 6 first, so we can actually see that in action. So source, app component, and we move the lib header inside here. I think there was also something. So here, now you see, no, it still does it. So if we look at our previous application, how we fixed it was we had the drawer that has the is open and the links, and then we had the header, and then we had just the main. Uh, but now we have something similar. So we have app header. La, 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 la. I think this should be fine. So we can add a main here, or we can say P4, and then we have router outlet. Now this is good. So you see, even if it pushes to the side, I can click this and then it comes back. Now, one of the things that we also want to do maybe is when we are calling or clicking a drawer, it toggles it back. So what we can do is we can go to our component, which should be right here in UILib. And whenever we hit a link in the drawer, which is right here, we also call the drawer service and we call its drawer click. So what I can do is I can do this in 2 steps. So we have drawer service equals, and then oops, and then this guy. And then what we can do is this drawer service dot is drawer open, right? And then in the HTML, whenever we are clicking a particular link, we just say it's clicked. We say drawer service dot toggle drawer. So it closes the drawer as well. And it's not going to like it because it's not an element that should be clicked. So now if I try this and open this and click this, you can see the drawer closes, right? So this is what we wanted. So we can either toggle it like this or we can toggle it like this. Nice. So let's, okay. To hide the sidebar icon, use the icon in the top right or press B. What is the icon on the top right? Toggle AI pane, toggle panel, toggle primary sidebar. That's the one. Okay, now I know. Good. So so we need to do this obviously for all the other things as well. So so here we're going to replace this chapter 1, and then we can go to chapter 2 app component HTML. So we change that to chapter 2. Then we go chapter 3 component HTML. We change this to 3. Nope. 3. Then we go to chapter 4 app component HTML, changes to 4. And we go to chapter 5 app component HTML, and we replace this to chapter 5. So all of our applications should be nice now. Okay, so we are looking for the event output. What we're going to do is we're going to create a notification panel in the app that could inform that the app right now, or there's an output, so to say. So if we have a look at the code here, let's open the side panel. So in here, I'm actually gonna expand this a bit. So we do have our components here, events with outputs, and that's the page we're going to render a notification output on. So right now it just says app event with output works. So let's start adding some code here. One of the things that I also remember now is, for example, if I say div here and not, what am I doing? Not here. It's here. So here, what we can do is we can start creating a notification panel button that says 5 notifications or something like that. And then it should basically get unread somehow. So we are going to look into badge in Daisy UI, which is right here. Let's have some examples here. So like this one. So inbox 99. So we're going to quickly copy this guy. And this is a simple button. There we go. And let's see how this renders here. So this is our input. Now what we want to do is from this component, or not this component, but from a child component, we want to push this or give the information to the parent component so the number goes away. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to look into notification panel, and here we're going to render this button instead. So this is the child component, and the number that's here is going to come from the parent. So here we can say notifications count. So notifications count is going to be an input, which is going to come from outside, and it's going to be a number, right? And it has to be there. So it's going to be a required number. And that's how you work with signals. Then what you can do is, if I close this, so then in the parent component, you can use the child component, this one, right? And pass the input. So here we can actually use app notification or notifications panel, right? Just like this. And then it has a required input, which can be seen here. So notifications count is what it requires. So here I can say notifications count, and I can say 5, for example. It has to be a number. So I need to give it like this. And I need to save this guy as well. And now you don't see a number here because we need to put it right here. So here I can say notifications count, and it's a signal. So we call it like this. And now you can see that this is done. So one of the things that you also see here is if I refresh, no, sorry. If I save a file here, it reloads the page, right? This actually was fixed in Angular 19.1, if I remember correctly, which also now allows you to have an HTML or a hot module replacement in the HTML. So previously it was only supported for CSS. Now it's there for HTML as well. But anyways, so here you can see we have got 5 here, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to come here and say that the notifications count, or we can also be fancy and we can say there's a count that is a computed, and it looks at the value of notifications count. So it would return based on if the notifications count are greater than 99, then it says 99 plus. I think that's what it had in the tailwind as well. Plus 99. Interesting. So plus 99, or that it just returns the notifications count. And then instead of using the notifications count, we actually use the count, right? So what happens here is that you're going to still see 5 when that happens. However, if I change that number to 105, then you're going to see, surprise, plus 99, since we are using a computed. So we keep it like this, but instead of hard coding this, we're gonna actually pass it from the parent component. So let's say we go here and then we create a variable here. We're gonna call it notifications or unread notifications count, just for the sake of more readability. Input dot required, what is that syntax from? That's part of the core Angular package. So here you have the input sort of, what do you call it? It's the input function, which says that a parent component, which is this events with output component, it's going to pass a variable as an input to the child. But when you say input dot required, this also marks this input as required. So this is JavaScript slash TypeScript, but this is the API that comes from Angular core. So it's an Angular syntax, so to say. So this one is going to be a signal, and the signal's default value is going to be 105. Okay. And what we can do here now is we can say unread notifications count, actually like this. Ooh, we can't really have a string for a number, as you can see right here. Kristen says, I've never seen that syntax before, only input as binding. Is it the same? Yes, that's the same. The input dot required just marks this as required. If you don't pass it, it's gonna throw an error on your IDE and also on compile time as well. So that's really good to just ensure that if you have a component that actually requires something, then it is required. So if you don't use it, then this value may or may not be there. So you can see it's number or undefined when you try to use it. And if you use a required, then TypeScript automatically sort of infers this, that this is going to be there. So you don't need to check if the value is there or not in here. And then it also throws an error here if you miss it. So it's really good for these particular cases. All right. So now that we've gotten this value, let's say by default notification unread notifications count is 105. What I want to do is whenever we click it, it goes away. So here we're going to create now an output, since this recipe is for output actually. What am I doing? So here it should be, you can say notifications or, I'm thinking now. Read. So here we can say we create an output that says notifications read already. And this is going to be just an output that doesn't do anything. So if it's an output where you have not provided anything, it automatically infers this as void. And then what I can do is whenever that comes here, so this is an output that I've created. So whenever there's a notifications read, I actually mark the value of the signal to 0. So here I can say mark signals as read. And here this function is going to just go and say this dot unread notifications count dot set, and we set it back to 0, right? So here we can say mark signals as read. Kristen says, that's amazing. Thanks for sharing your knowledge. No problem at all. Happy to help. So here, when I click this now, let's see what happens. Nothing. Why? Because we've created an output, but we never called it. So this button, whenever we click it, we need to call this output. So notifications read dot emit is what we are going to do. Notifications read. And now that we have this, boop, you can see that this converts to 0. And if you're using the Angular extension, you can also see these things in the Angular debugger if you have not used it before. So if you go to the Angular side of things, you're going to see here, we have the root component, but if I go to events with outputs, here you can see we have these properties. So we have unread notifications count, which is a signal that's now set to 0. But if I go to the panel, you will see a bunch of other things as well. So the panel actually has the inputs, which are notifications count. It's a read-only signal. You can't really change it. That's why we need to use the output, which you can see right here. So this is an input signal. It's a read-only signal. And then we have the outputs mentioning here. You can see notifications, right? I'm going to actually remove the bottom banner so you can see all the stuff. And then we also have the properties, which is this property, the computed property. So this is also a read-only signal, so you can't really change it. But whenever the count of notifications change, it would change this as well. Alrighty. So I hope this kind of makes sense. So we created an app in which we have a parent component, we have a child component, and you can also see that here as well. I think there was also a way of looking at the hierarchy of components as well. I think here you can look into this. Element hierarchy is the one, yes. So here you can see that we have the app component, inside which we have the drawer component. And inside the drawer, we use a bunch of other things. So we have this inputs with output component that we are looking at right now. And the child of it is notifications panel component. So this is a really good way of just visualizing what you have if you're using the Angular dev tools. So if I click this, it changes to 0. That was the application that I had to work on. Now I can add that to the book. And I should move my camera a bit down here. Good, awesome. So I actually hear that my kid is awake, so I'm gonna go. But those of you who don't really know, I'm working on my second book, which is the Modern Angular Signals book. So here you saw just an example of what I was trying to do. I'm going to be working on the rest of it. So it has 10 chapters. We're going to have linked signals, resource API, which is really new in Angular. We're going to have regular signals. We're going to have advanced use cases of those signals when we are building some complex applications. And my camera just died, which is also another signal for me to go. I'm going to change the battery, but then I'll go. So if you really want to get updated on when the book comes out, I would encourage you to give a follow so you know when it comes out. Or you could also go to newsletter.codewithahsan.dev. I'm going to share this in the chat as well. And here you can also just wait for when it comes out. So I've published some of the things that I did before already. So here you get the news related to Angular or whatever I'm doing. So it's going to be a lot of fun stuff here. Before we go, do we want to run some sounds? So if you don't really know, you can look into these sounds. So you can actually type that in the comment and you will be actually playing a sound on my computer. So it's really powerful what you can do with technology. Crazy Developer says, why do you write books instead of freelancing? I mean, why do I want to write books? Why should I do freelancing? I don't really know. I mean, I've done freelancing for 4 to 5 years in the past. I'm right now working on a 9 to 5 job. I like creating content quite a lot. I like helping developers quite a lot as well. You can't really do that with just freelancing. So the reason I write book is because I learned myself quite a lot. In order to write a book, you need to have a strong grip on the subject. So if I'm writing a book about Angular, that means I have a proof that I am an expert in Angular, so to say. That's one of the things. And then if I have that, then it makes it easier for people to reach out to me because they can see that this person has written a book. So a book is really credible when it comes to it. It's just like writing articles, creating videos, live streaming, and coding. So it's the same. And on the other side of things, it can also bring a lot of money as well. So you write the book once, and then I mean, I haven't had that experience, but I'm hoping for one with this book. But once you have written the book, you have published it, then obviously you don't have to do anything, and the book gets sales, and then you earn money from it as well. So it's similar to freelance, but I think for me it has more value because it helps others as well. Kristen says, I'm still learning Angular and improving my practices, but always have the problem of correct scaffolding. Any suggestions? When you say of correct scaffolding, do you mean you want to have the right tools already in your application. That is, you should have, for example, I don't know if you should have Tailwind CSS or Daisy UI or the libraries that you want to have in there. Is that what you're looking for? That is a bunch of libraries and tools. What I can, I mean, it could also include things like linters, right? Prettier or ESLint, all those things as well. So it could be those as well. So I have to go into very specific on what you really want to be able to answer this well. But what I can encourage you to look into is if you go to Angular Cookbook second edition. By the way, try to not buy the second edition if you don't want to at the moment, because it's there's a third version that I'm gonna work on hopefully soon. But the book that I'm talking about, Signals, it's a completely different book. But it's also possible that I'm going to be having a new version of the Angular Cookbook itself as well. So two books in 2025, inshallah. So if you look here, there's a folder named CodewithAhsan. I'm going to share this in the link as well, so you may look into this as well. Kristen says, I mean folder structure like shared, core, app, modules, etc. So the shared core and all those things are very old, to be honest. We don't use modules anymore. There's a concept of standalone component. So every component itself is a module, so to say, you can call it. But it's basically that the components right now don't have any modules at all. So the idea or the ideal structure now would be that your project's root has sort of the folders for your pages. For example, here you're going to see that I have this events with outputs, that's a page, reactive inputs, that's a page, and everything else is inside components. So the components which are going to be reused have their own pages. You could also have not modules, but you could have if you're referring to feature modules, then that's a different thing. So if you have feature modules, that's a different thing. Angular modules are different. So you could have feature modules based on your domain. One of the things that you can also look into is this really good book from Manfred Steuer, if I remember the name correct, and it's like Enterprise Angular. So look into this book. That's a really good book, and it's free actually. So it has a really good structure for how to create scalable applications based on a domain driven design, if I remember correctly. Yeah, DDD with Angular, as you see right here. So how you can implement it in terms of domain driven design, how you can enforce your architecture, blah blah blah, all of that. But to give you two ways. One way is to follow this book and have a mental model of the folders that you really want, and then create them every time you create a new application. The other way that I was referring to is if you look at this particular book's CodewithAhsan, this is an NX package which has a schematic. So what that is I have created a package for myself for my book that allows me to create consistent Angular applications throughout the book. So for example, if I show you what it does is not that actually, but if I show you the source, you're going to find that in the generators, whenever we generate a particular application, I have a template of the files. For example, I have an index.html template here. And if you look at the index.html, it has things like I'm using a particular Google font for all of my applications. I'm using material design icons every time. So whenever I have to create an application for my book, I actually just run my package or the generator from my package, which generates an Angular application with a pre-decided architecture. So you can create your own as well. And I'm not really sure if there are good tutorials out there for doing this, because I couldn't find when I was trying to do so. And that was a bit of a struggle for me, but I eventually ended up creating this anyways. So I might find some time to create a tutorial myself in the future. But you can create your own sort of scaffolder, so to say, or just remember the mental model. I'm not really sure if the deployment is going to be working right now, most likely. So here, for example, we have a bunch of, I'm going to actually show you in a nicer way. So we do have all the applications, and this is not a great UI, I agree, but I didn't give it too much prioritization. But let's say you talk about route animations, right? If I open route animations, you can see that there's a specific structure for this application. So it has a header, it has a logo, and you have these buttons. This is actually consistent throughout all the 96 plus projects that I have in this book. And that is because of the scaffolder that I mentioned before. If I open something like, I don't know, lists, I think there was staggering animation in Angular. So for example, if you want to have animation that come after one another, you can also have staggering animation like this. Oh no, that's not going to work. Let's go back. List final. Log out, log in. So you see the animations come in like this. So that's like the staggering animation concept. So, but I got sidetracked. So you have the title here, you have the logo, you have the buttons and all of those things here as well. So it doesn't matter which particular project you open, you're going to find the same things on all the projects. So like this is creating NGRX store with actions and reducer. This uses actually Redux or NGRX for doing the same thing. And then we have other like, I don't know if you have seen the defer block. For example, if you wanted to load particular components only when the user scrolls to them to improve the performance, you could actually do that. So if I scroll a bit down, the next component is not loaded at all. And I can show that to you with the network. So here, if I try to go a bit down, you're going to see we are going to load more JavaScript for the component that's not in the view at the moment. So if I scroll a bit down, you see a loader and you see that now this component came into being. So here, this is the component that has the, I don't know, file, folder. So all those things are loaded on demand, so to say, to improve the performance. So this was actually a cool demo now that I remember it. And you can move from one folder to other folder. And this is just pure Angular. And if you go a bit more down, then you load a bit more stuff like users list. But you know what's really funny and interesting with defer blocks is now we have loaded a component that renders this list, but I can also do things on hover because I just hovered on this and this component actually loaded then, which is the back side component, something like that. I can't remember the name of this. User card back component is the name. So you can do crazy stuff with defer as well. But again, scaffolding can be done when you use your own sort of scaffolder, or you decide on what structure do you find nice. And there's no perfect answer to this because a lot of teams enforce different sort of ways. And I've worked with many teams now in the past 11 years. So it's interesting. Vladislav says, I think Manfred forces to use NX, but last time I can hear that it is overwhelmed. How do they structure apps in Google? I mean, if you're on Gmail, there's dots with other apps, and I know there are different apps, but they also have something in common. So there are many things to this. The architecture in Google is very different because sometimes it uses micro front ends, sometimes it uses iframes, sometimes it uses something else. So it's really hard to say what they're using in terms of folder structure. I do know that there's a culture of mono repository in Google. So, and also whatever Angular is pushing as stable, it is checked into, or before it even goes, or no, not before, but once it's pushed, then a lot of Google applications running Angular basically test it. So I'm not really sure about the architecture, to be honest, because it's really subjective to the teams, what they prefer or what they find scalable, so to say. But when it comes to NX, the only thing that I've struggled with is that I can't really update Angular quickly, or when a new version of Angular comes out, I have to wait before NX implements it. But it's not as much of a struggle, but I just have to wait a while before NX pushes that. But when it comes to structure of the NX applications, if you look here, for example, I have about 86 or no, 96 plus projects in here. And if you see the structure, I have all of them in my apps. So we have chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, but I've enforced this structure myself. So it's up to you how you decide it. By default, the apps should have apps directly. That's what NX enforces. And it's not very overwhelming, to be honest. I think it's probably one of the best ways you can work with Angular today. So when you go to a particular application, it looks just like an Angular application. It solves a lot of problems for you if you are actually working on multiple applications and you're working on multiple libraries as well. Casey, how's it going? Good to see you again. Yes, it has been a minute. Yes. So yeah, I think that probably answers your question, Vlad, if I pronounce it correctly. But having said that, I'm gonna actually have to leave. I have my son who woke up, and I also have to do breakfast with my family. So I'm gonna see you later. Thank you so much for joining, and as always, happy coding.